Chapter 10, which I am reading from the Waggoner translation of the Saga of Ragnar Lothbrok. Now that time had passed when Ragnar had to come to the feast at Uppsala as agreed, but he didn't go. That seemed to King Eystein to be an insult to himself and his daughter, and the king's friendship was broken off. When Eirek and Agnar, Ragnar's sons, heard that, they made plans together to get a great host for themselves, as large as they could, and raid in Sweden. They got together a large force of men and made their ship ready. They believed that their success would strongly depend on everything going well when the ship set out. As it happened, when Agnar's ship was launched from the rollers, there was a man in front of it, and he was killed. They called that the Roller Red. Now it seemed to them that things had not gone well at the start, but they didn't want to let that stand in the way of their journey. And when the forces were ready, they went with their men to Sweden, and they bore the war shields, where they first entered the kingdom of King Eystein. But the leading men found out and went to Uppsala and told King Eystein that a host had come into their land. The king had the war arrows sent throughout his kingdom and summoned such a huge host that it was a wonder. Then he advanced his forces until he came to a forest, and he pitched his tents there. He now had the cow Sibilja with him, and she received many sacrifices before she was willing to travel. When they were in the forest, King Eystein spoke. "I have found out," he said, "that Ragnar's sons are in the fields directly in front of the forest, and I have been told truly that they have not a third of the forces we have. Now we shall divide our ranks for the battle. 1/3 of our men shall advance against them, and they are so bold that they will think that they have the business well in hand. Then we shall attack them with our full forces, and the cow will go in front of the army, and I expect that they shall not withstand her bellowing." And so it was done. As soon as the brothers saw King Eystein's force, they thought that it wouldn't be too powerful to deal with, and they didn't suppose that his forces might be larger. Suddenly, all of his host came out of the forest. The cow was turned loose, and she charged in front of the ranks and bellowed horribly. There was such great confusion among the fighters who heard it that they fought each other, except for the 2 brothers who managed to hold out. The evil creature gored many men with her horns that day. Though the sons of Ragnar were mighty, they could not withstand both such overwhelming forces and such sorcery, although they put up stiff resistance and defended themselves well, with bravery and great renown. Eirek and Agnar were in the forefront of the ranks that day, and they often broke through the battle lines of King Eystein. Then Agnar fell. Eirek saw that, and he bore himself more bravely than ever, and didn't care whether he survived or not, but he was surrounded by an overpowering force and captured. Now, Eystein said that the battle should stop, and he offered a truce to Eirek, "And I will grant you this as well," he said. "I will give you my daughter's hand in marriage." Eirek spoke a verse. "I won't take my brother's blood money, nor buy a maid with rings. It's now said that Eystein has become Agnar's bane. My mother won't mourn me. I'll mount up above the slain. Let the ravenous spear shaft skewer me right through." He said that he wanted the men who had followed him and Agnar to have safe conduct and to go wherever they wanted. "But I want as many spears as possible to be taken and to be struck down in the ground, and there I will have myself lifted up on them, and there I will lay down my life." King Eystein said that he had asked for what be done, although he had made the worst choice for both of them. Now the points of the spears were set down, and Eirek spoke a verse. "No king's son shall ever, so I know my sentence, die on a dearer bed, a day's meal for the raven. The soot-black blood-seeker will soon scream over the brothers, rip apart the pair of them, though it's a poor reward. Now he went to the place where the spears were set down. He took a ring from his hand and threw it to those men who had followed him and had been given safe conduct. He dispatched them to Aslag and spoke a verse. Fair with my final words, finished our eastern journeys, the slender Lady Aslag may own my hoard of rings. There will be fiercest fury when they find out my death, if my stepmother speaks of it to her sons so gentle. And now he was heaved up on the spears. Then he saw a raven flying, and he said to it, Now the slash gull soars high, screaming over my head. The wound falcon wishes my warm, unseeing eyes. No, if the bird should break the brow stones from my head, the raven pays me poorly for plenty of Ekil's bounty. Now he laid down his life with great courage. But his messengers went home and didn't stop until they came to where Ragnar had his royal seat. At the time, Ragnar had gone to a meeting of kings. Ragnar's sons had also not come home from raiding. The messengers were there for 3 nights before they went to meet Aslag. When they came before Aslag's high seat, they greeted her respectfully, and she began to speak with them. She had a linen kerchief on her knees and meant to comb her hair, as she had let her hair down. Now she asked who they were, for she had not seen them before. The one who spoke for them said that they had been warriors of Eirek and Agnar, Ragnar's sons. Then she spoke a verse. What tidings do you tell, trusted friend of kings? Are the Swedes a-sailing, or perhaps sent packing? I see that Danes have sailed from the south northwards. The Hildings had red rollers. I have no further knowledge. He spoke a verse in reply. We must say to you, lady, what is sorely distressing. Slain are the sons of Thora, sad the fates of your men. No other new tidings, we know, are heavy as these. I've come from hearing the news, over the corpse flies the eagle. She asked what had happened. He spoke that verse which Eirek had spoken when he sent the ring to her. They saw that she shed a tear. It looked like blood and was as hard as a hailstone. No one had ever seen her shed a tear, neither before nor since. Now she said that she could not plan vengeance before one of the other came home, Ragnar or his sons. But you shall stay here till then. I will not fail to urge them to take revenge, just as if they were my own sons. And so they stayed there. It so happened that Ivar and his brothers came home before Ragnar. They were not home long before Aslag went to meet her sons. Sigurd was 3 years old at the time, and he went with his mother. And when she came into the hall where the brothers were having their discussion, they greeted her warmly. They asked for any other news, and they spoke about the fall of her son Roggenwald and about the events which had happened there. But that news didn't affect her much, and she said, My sons left me to stare at the seagull's land a long time. You've been gadding about, going around begging. Roggenwald soaked his shield in slain warriors' blood. He fared unafraid to Odin of my fine sons, the youngest. And I cannot see, she said, how he could have lived for greater glory. Now they asked what news she had, and she answered, The fall of Eirek and Agnar, your brothers and my stepsons, the men who were the best of warriors, as I believe. It will not be surprising if you refuse to tolerate such a thing and exact terrible vengeance. I ask this of you, and I will assist you in everything so that our revenge may be greater rather than less. Ivar said, This is certain. I will never come to Sweden for the purpose of fighting King Eystein and the sorcery that is there. She pressed him, but Ivar spoke for them all and completely refused to make voyage. And now she spoke a verse. Had you been first to fall, without fail you would not be lying, lacking vengeance, delayed for half a year. If Eirek and Agnar, I'll conceal it little, brethren not born of me, still did breathe and live. It's not certain, said Ivar, whether that helps your case at all, though you speak one verse after another. How clearly do you know what sort of defences we would be facing? I don't know that certainly, she said. What can you say about the obstacles there? Ivar said that there was such great sorcery that no one that he had ever heard that the like could exist, and the king is both powerful and wicked. What does he worship most at sacrifice? Ivar said, it's a great cow, and she is called Sibilja. She has been made so powerful that as soon as men hear her bellowing, his enemies cannot withstand it. It is hardly as if we shall be battling with men alone. Rather, I think that first we shall encounter sorcery before we meet the king. I will not risk myself nor my men. She said, you might realize that you cannot be called the greatest of men if you don't strive for it. Now that it seemed to her that it was in vain, she meant to leave. She thought that they didn't set much store by her words. Then Sigurd Snake in the Eye spoke. I must tell you, mother, he said, what is in my mind, though I may not change their answers. I will listen to that, she said. Now Sigurd spoke a verse. It will take us 3 nights if you are troubled, mother. Far must be our faring, for our forces to be ready. If blade edges aid us, Eystein the king shall not hold Uppsala's high seat, though hoarded wealth he offer. When he had spoken this verse, the brothers' minds began to change somewhat. Now Aslug said, Now you have made it known that you will do my will, my son, but I cannot see how we too will go on this journey if we don't have help from your brothers. Yet it may turn out that this deed will be avenged, as seems best to me. I think it is good that you go, my son. And now Bjorn spoke a verse. A hawk-keen breast holding bold heart and mind within, aids a man though he make but little mention of it. Though no snakes nor serpents skimmer in our eyes, my brothers made me merry. I remember your stepsons. And now Fitzurk spoke a verse. Let's plan before we promise, plot to wreak our vengeance. Be blithe that Agnar's banesmen must bear a host of harms. Let's shove the boat off from shore, shatter ice before the prow, see how soon we can get our sailing ships outfitted. Fitzurk advised that they should break the ice because the river was hard frozen and their ships were trapped in the ice. And now Ivar began to speak, and he said that things had come to the point that he must take part, and he also spoke a verse. You all boast of boundless bravery and daring. Now what you all need is great tenacity as well. I'll be hoisted above heroes because I have no bones yet. I'll have a hand in vengeance, whichever I make use of. And now it is the time, said Ivar, for us to start planning as best we can to provision our ships and to summon a war host, because we will need to leave nothing out if we are to be victorious. Now Aslug went away.